Welcome to Dispatch 33. We've got a lot of follow-up with these mass shootings that happened in El Paso, Texas, and in Dayton, Ohio. Not Toledo, as President Trump so incorrectly said yesterday. Even though his teleprompter said otherwise, he still said Toledo. Okay, fine. So look, I'm open to ideas. I want to hear suggestions. I have my ideas on what to do about gun laws, which is just get rid of semi-automatic weapons. As long as the Republicans have the Senate and as long as the Republicans have the presidency, it's absolutely not going to happen. So let's find other ways in the meantime. I mean, look, the Democrats look really well positioned to take the presidency in next year's election. The Senate's going to be a bigger battle, but we'll see what happens with people like Amy McGrath in Kentucky if she can oust Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who put up an unbelievable tweet. Take a look. That's outrageous after these mass shootings. And then we have Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. Jaime Harrison is running against him, and I'm looking forward to Lindsey Graham losing. But it's Republicans look like they'll probably keep the Senate. I don't know. I would love to see the Democrats take it. But anyway, in the absence of banning semi-automatic firearms, state of California leads the resistance. We're leading. And we implemented a law that I believe should be the national model. We passed a law that took effect starting July 1st that says that you have to have background checks to buy ammunition. Now look, the Republicans are saying, it's mental health, it's video games, it's the breakdown of the family. No, it's also that we now have firearms that require no skill to kill 100 people in a matter of moments, or at least hit 100 people in 2 minutes before the cops shoot you. Look at the Las Vegas massacre. You don't need to have any accuracy. You just shoot into a big crowd. It's horrible, and these weapons enable it. So California says, and the Republicans should be along this ride, background check for ammunition. That makes sense, right? I mean, look, if you're already a convicted felon and you shouldn't have firearms, let's check the database and make sure that you can't buy the ammunition. So even if, because again, this is the big argument, well, the bad guys are going to find a way to get a gun. Let's make it harder every step of the way, though. Let's make it so they have to work harder at it. It's going to cost them more money. It's going to be way more difficult. Law enforcement has many different opportunities to stop it before it actually happens. So let's take that approach. So we do background checks on firearms already with loopholes. There's the gun show loophole, private to private sale. We're not tight enough on if you have mental illness. Again, President Trump repealed that law quickly after taking office that Obama had implemented through regulation, which is, again, my argument about you relying on executive orders. They'll be repealed by the next executive who disagrees with you. So here's the deal. Ammunition background check went into effect July 1st. Attorney General Javier Becerra here in the state of California had to report to a judge because there's a lawsuit by a gun right group saying that's a violation of the Second Amendment. It's not. Section 3 of Heller, since Heller is the standing Supreme Court precedent, says that we can regulate firearms. So the new figures are, in 1 month, California blocked more than 100 felons and other prohibited persons from buying ammunition in the last month. This is that new background check. The Attorney General just announced this yesterday. Here's a quote from the Attorney General in his filing to the federal judge. California has a substantial interest in increasing public safety and preventing crime. And the ammunition eligibility check laws, which, by the way, there's already a law, something like it in Illinois as well, which prevented convicted felons and other prohibited persons from purchasing ammunition. You would think that the Republicans would get on board with that. Hey, background check. You stole a firearm? Let's make sure you can't get ammo for it. Oh, I'm going to hear this argument. I know it in the comments from somebody. Well, you can make your own ammo. Yeah, I know people who make their own ammo. You're right. That's way harder to stop. But again, the average criminal isn't making their own ammo. The white supremacist who did the mass shooting in El Paso, not making his own ammo. The shooter at Gilroy at the Garlic Festival. Remember, we had Gilroy, then we had El Paso, then we had Dayton. Let's do something. Dying at community festivals that were a fundraiser. Dying at the Walmart, going to the mall, dying at the bar when you're leaving. I mean, this is outrageous. We've got to do something. So I love this idea of the ammunition background check. It makes sense. And Governor Newsom said this: "We're going to fight like the Dickens. We're confident that we will prevail." He said that the law requiring background checks for ammunition buyers is needed because guns alone don't kill people. Guns require a dangerous component. That's ammunition. I agree with him. Isn't that logical? How do you argue with that? Oh, but it's a burden. Well, again, Justice Scalia wrote in Section 3 of the Heller decision, regulations are absolutely okay. Now, he says you can't just ban stuff outright, like the no handguns in Washington, D.C. That was what the Heller decision was about. And that was the first time in American history that the Supreme Court said the Second Amendment applies to individuals. Remember the Militia Act of 1792? I referenced this yesterday on TV, and maybe even in the podcast as well. That was what said it's a militia. The state governs it. The state's going to require this in terms of firearms for the militia. And then it was Heller in 2008 said, no, the individual has the right to bear arms. But still can be regulated. Let's do an ammunition background check. I'm on board. What do you think? Send me your comments, comment below. You can also email me, leftcoastnews@ethanbehrman.com. But I have one more topic today related to President Trump and politics and California leading the resistance. So the state of California has passed a law now requiring presidential primary candidates to release their tax returns or be kept off the primary ballot. So the Republicans are suing now. I got the PR release about the RNC suing the state of California over the law requiring tax returns of presidential candidates. Now, before I read their statement, let's start with this. This is President Trump promising to release his tax returns.
When you run for president, will you release your income tax returns?
You know, it's something I haven't even thought of, but I probably wouldn't have a problem with doing it.
Mitt was hurt really very badly by this whole thing with the income tax returns. April 1st is the time that historically everybody gives them, and everybody has done it for many, many years.
You know, when we're talking about the tax returns, if you didn't see them, and the tax returns look like they're fine, but if you didn't see the tax returns, you'd think there's almost like something wrong. What's wrong?
Obviously, it's not something I thought of, but I have no objection to certainly showing tax returns.
I want to tell you right now, I have no problem with giving my tax returns. I'm very honest on my tax returns.
What is your tax rate?
I'm not going to say it, but at some point I'll release it. But I pay as little as possible. I'm very proud to tell you.
Your tax returns, when are we going to see them?
I'd say over the next 3-4 months, we're working on it very hard, and they'll be very good.
The audio and the transcript are out there on YouTube, that you would release your tax returns.
True.
Are you going back on your
No, I'm not.
commitment?
First, I want to release my tax returns, but I can't release it while I'm under an audit. We're under a routine audit. I've had it for years. I get audited. And obviously, if I'm being audited, I'm not going to release a return.
Question, why not release the tax returns that aren't involved in the audit?
Because it's a link.
Do you pledge to do it before the election?
Excuse me, sure. If the audit is finished, I'll do it as fast as the audit's finished.
Every president in my lifetime has released his tax returns. This is how we know what kind of financial entanglements he has, who he might owe favors to. In the case of President Trump, maybe he really is tied in deep with Putin and the Russians. We don't know because he never released his tax returns, unlike every other president. And remember, his big argument is, I'm under audit. I'm under audit. I can't release my tax returns while I'm under audit. Yes, President Nixon did. Tricky Dick released his taxes while under audit. You can too, President Trump. So California said, we're going to do it in a way. So look, the way the laws work is this. States run their own elections. There are specific rules regarding federal elections that the states cannot infringe upon, federal statutes, etc. States can do a lot. And the Supreme Court just ruled partisan gerrymandering is okay. Remember, this Supreme Court just ruled that partisan gerrymandering at the state level is okay. Basically, anything you want to do, as long as you're not saying it's about race, a protected class, nationality, ethnicity, religion, they can't do that. You can't gerrymander on those. You can only gerrymander on things like politics. Hey, the state of California says primary, release your tax return and you don't make it on the ballot. So while you might look at that and say, well, that's specifically targeted at President Trump, there might be some truth in that. However, Shouldn't we require politicians running for public office to release their tax returns? Shouldn't we do that? I mean, just generally speaking, should that not be a requirement to run for office, that you have to release your tax returns so we know what kind of entanglements you have? At least if you're going to hold a higher office, maybe not city council. I'm running for town council in wherever, in Gilroy. Maybe I don't need to release my tax returns for that. But you're going to run for federal office, you're going to run for a higher state office. I think you should be required to release your tax returns. So the Republicans are saying, no, we will not allow California's Democrats to use the state's voters as pawns in their petty political vendettas to trample all over the Constitution. That was Harmeet Dillon. Been on TV against her a couple of times. This law is, she's an attorney and former Republican National Committee woman, or she still is, and the vice president of the Republican National Lawyers Association, Harmeet Dillon. So they're saying that the law is a cynical and illegal voter suppression scheme. Really? How does that suppress voters when a candidate has to release their tax returns? There's nothing in this about the voter. Everything in this is about the candidate being transparent about who they owe money to, or how much money they make, or how much of the money they don't make. Or like in the case of Eric Swalwell, one of the complaints I remember about him, I like Representative Swalwell, and I gave $1 to his campaign so he'd be on the debate stage. He has a lot of student loan debt. He doesn't make a lot of money. And people were actually attacking him for that. I view it the opposite. It's a little like AOC. He actually understands what people are going through, as opposed to Betsy DeVos, who's a billionaire and doesn't know a damn thing about public schools, what it takes to go to college, what it takes to fund going to college. Because if you're a billionaire, just go to private school. Hey, just write a check and go pay your college tuition and your room and board. People like Eric Swalwell, people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, representatives, I should clarify, actually understand that pain that's involved with actually having to pay for a higher education. So I love this idea of requiring a tax return. Now, again, it's not the federal government requiring this. It's the state government at the primary level. It makes sense to me. Let me know your thoughts. Send me your feedback, comment below. Email me leftcoastnews@ethanbehrman.com. Please follow me and subscribe and share. It's the most important thing that you can do, is share with others. So forward it along, pass it along, share it, however you might do that. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll talk to you on the next Dispatch.